Um, Welcome everyone. Thank you. And good afternoon. Just a word of warning. I did come down with a pretty bad cold yesterday, so I apologize in advance if I sound a little rhino-viral. Um, the agenda speaks of Amplify. I'm going to actually be talking about Amplify and the ASCE Hazard Tool. They are separate products. They, however, are related and complementary in the way that they approach uh, our standards and a lot of questions that we get about Amplify are actually better answered by the Hazard tool. So I just want to give sort of a broad perspective of how these two tools relate and how they support each other in this little ecosystem. They are both intended to expand access to and enhance the usability of ASCE published standards in providing access to both the text and to the data within that text. So I'm going to start with Amplify. Amplify has recently gotten a lot of press and promotion for us, but it's actually a rebranding. Amplify began its life in 2016 as the ASCE 7 platform. It was originally designed as a digital presentation of the ASCE SCI 710 and 716 standards. And in 2021, we added 722. It was always our original intent to expand beyond the ASCE 7 and include our more of our library of standards, if not our entire library of standards and related book products. But the original website that we designed did not have the capacity and the scalability that we needed for that. So in 2024, we rebuilt and redesigned the entire website from the ground up as Amplify, with an embarrassing typo in my last bullet point there. So the essential features of Amplify are that it's a digital platform for reading the full text of the standards, laid out as independently scrolling columns for provisions and commentary, so that you can look at sections in parallel sections with both types of text in parallel. It has got quality of life and convenience features like figures and tables that you can click on to expand and see expanded versions of them on the screen, links to other sections. The errata and supplements and changes from the previous version are displayed as tracked changes. That is to say, underlines and crossouts. And they are marked in the text and can be expanded so that you can look at the original text side by side with the change text and see exactly what was changed there. Process of publishing it, we take the full text of the standard and we have our compositor vendors translate that into XML using the BITS 2.0 DTD. We take all of the information regarding errata, any supplements that are published, and the version history between the current version and the previous, and we encode that directly into the XML as well, so that the standard's entire publication history and the various alterations that it has gone through from version to version and with corrections and supplements can be managed and uploaded as a single document. We upload it into Highwire Press, which is owned by MPS. They have a platform called Scalaris. We upload it, and the XML is then automatically translated into HTML and displayed with all of the various features that we were just discussing. Future developments We are now conceiving the Amplify platform as a repository for all of our ASCE standards, including back content and new standards as they are published. When we do publish new versions of continuing standards, such as the 728 that's coming up in a couple of years, we add that to the collection of the standards. So if you have access to ASCE 7, for example, you have access to the 710, the 716, the 722, and the 728 when it gets published. And with changes tracked from version to version as we go, so you can see how it has evolved. We are publishing additional book formats, including manuals of practice. We have one technical review for subsurface utility engineering. And this coming year, we are planning to publish the guidebooks for ASCE 7, the guide to the snow provisions and the guide to the wind provisions, as part of the overall ASCE 7 practice. We also have plans in place to publish some non-English translations of the ASCE 7. I believe it's a Spanish translation. And we are slated to add somewhere between 25 and 30 additional standards in 2026 of both back content and new standards as they are published. So I'm going to switch over and talk about the hazard tool now, where Amplify is concerned primarily with making accessible the full text and reading of the standard. The hazard tool is specifically about engaging with the data, the hazard data of ASCE 7 primarily. It was originally conceived at the same time as the ASCE 7 platform, and it was meant to be a companion to it. And it provides data lookups for all of the hazards in ASCE 7, the geographically related data for wind, rain, snow, ice, seismic, and flood. The 716 added a chapter on tsunami, and the 722 added data for tornadoes. The process here is the data is provided by the standards committee for each hazard. In the original incarnation of the hazard tool, that data consisted of primarily the published map images from 710 and 716. We did not, in most of those cases, have access to the original data files from which those maps were derived. So the maps themselves were used as the basis for developing geodatabase files usable by ArcGIS software. For 722, we had kind of caught up in technology, and we were able to, committees were able to supply us with shape files and gridded data files that allowed for far greater accuracy and thoroughness and ease of integration into the platform. And that last specifically has become particularly important for 722. There is, and moving forward, there is gridded data that is that's too large a data set to easily print in any form in a physical book. Even to convert it into a map that map has to fit on an 8.5 by 11 page in a book, and the resolution, a great deal of detail and resolution is lost thereby. For snow loads, just as take an example, we have individual data points for a grid every 800 meters across the entire continental United States. There's no way to publish or usefully access that data except through an online digital tool such as the hazard tool. And what that means is that the hazard tool is no longer simply a tool for viewing the standard. The tool itself is a part of the standard, and the data that it references is a critical balloted portion of that standard and has to be treated as such. Um, and the tool is one of the few ways available to even access it. Now, for some of the hazards involved, we also, rather than data that ASCE has generated in the standard itself, we take data that is provided by publicly available web service feeds. Seismic data, we go to USGS. For rain, we use NOAA's Atlas rainfall data. And for flood, we use the flood maps available at FEMA. Pardon. Future developments of the hazard tool. The scope of the tool is increased as the ASCE 7 continues to grow and include additional data. In 2023, we included seismic data from the ASCE 4117 and 4123 standards. The ASCE 728 will include a chapter on future conditions for a number of hazards, including rainfall. Flood has a great deal of additional data regarding rising sea levels, and we're looking to incorporate that as well. And we have recently created a new department within the ASCE Publications Division that is devoted to standards publishing and to sort of streamline the process of working with the standards committees and the committee members and publishing the standard both in its print form and as it goes to Amplify and the hazard tool. And one of the things that we have already begun working on is processes for allowing a greater direct involvement of committee members in overseeing that data as it is prepared and how it is presented on the hazard tool. Standardizing the way that the data is formatted and that the way that information is gathered from the committees, standardizing the way that we bring in experts in the field and committee members to beta test and quality control that data to make sure that it's being presented correctly, and to develop ways to better track the source files as we get them from the committee members and sort of create a repository of those original source files so they can be maintained and referenced, and providing documentation of any changes or corrections that are made post-publication and making those changes visible and accessible to users. We have always made every effort to make the provenance of the data that we make available on the hazard tool visible to users, whether that is the specific chapter, section, figure, or table that it comes from in the published standard, or whether that comes from a third party like USGS or NOAA. We have also started having exploratory discussions about adding additional data beyond that contained in the published standards to the hazard tool. For example, one of several ideas that have been floated is the idea of providing USGS fire danger forecast data for areas that are afflicted by periodic forest fires. These are still very much in the early stages, and there are a number of caveats that have to be considered. One of which is, as we're talking about what we can include and what we can't include, we have to remember that the hazard tool is fundamentally a GIS platform. It's a geographical information system, and it is designed to organize and handle geographically related data that is related to specific points in latitude and longitude, and just tabular data that's not specifically tied to geographical location is possible, but would require a fair amount of rebranding and rethinking of how the website is organized and branded from the ground up. Uh, in addition, the scope, although it has expanded, is still limited to ASCE published standards. And that carries with it a certain imprimatur of authority and also implies a certain responsibility and liability uh, for that information. And so we have to be careful uh, about what we want to make those statements about and what kinds of data we want to include on that. If we're talking about third party data, does this carry the same authority as an ASCE SCI uh, standard? And how do we rebrand the website to include that other scope should we choose to do that? And the final consideration, of course, is that this website is not cheap to develop or maintain. The more we put on it, the more we have to find ways to monetize or subsidize the development of the website. And we have a few initiatives in place. Um, we offer API access to certain types of the hazard tool data as a subscription service, and we also subsidize it based on how well that's doing and how well the print published book is doing and selling, and so on and so forth. But the budgets tend to get tight on that. Now you mentioned AI. I actually don't have a slide for this, but I can talk about that. We have been developing an AI tool for the Amplify site that is essentially intended to be an assisted search engine that allows users, rather than simply using keywords and looking for keyword incidences in the text, users can uh, uh, input searches as natural language queries and develop a system that will the AI is taught uh, based on the content of the standards and can develop more expansive answers to those queries based on the contents of those standards. And we are a number of the cautions that we're attempting to instill into a system like that is we want to make sure that the information that is returned by the AI bot is always referenced. We have links to the standards on Amplify that it used in order to formulate those answers, and it is limited in what it is allowed to formulate in response to a search query. It is not building castles in the air. It is explaining like what content is available in the standards to that would answer this question, this query that the user has input. The name of that system is Eves. We had a soft launch of Eves several weeks ago, and are continuing to test and refine it as we go. And ideally, hopefully, there are plans to expand that beyond just the standards that are published on Amplify, and allow different branches of Eves to work along across all of our content platforms, including the ASCE library, so it can answer questions and direct users to articles and books published in our catalog of journals as well. Um, that is, I've gone a little bit longer than I intended, but I think we have some time to take questions if anybody has any questions or wants to explore any of that further.
Yeah, you're good, Mike. Uh, those of us that regularly attend these know I think we've used the break one time in over 56 sessions. So that's just Megan's trick for kind of keeping us on schedule. So who has questions? Anyone? There's a lot of good content there. I think you see why we wanted to have Amplify. And I should say that Tom Smith actually suggested that we get a presentation on this when I was talking to Tom in Seattle about the ongoing work we're doing with NOAA. So even though Tom's no longer the executive director here at ASCE, his legacy lives on. Anyway, questions or comments for Mike or Carol? Um,
Dan, I have a
Go
question
ahead,
to Mike.
please.
First of all, thank you so much. This is really helpful, not only in terms of becoming more familiar with the different dimensions of it, but the plans. Um, One item I'd like to hear from to get your comments on is what are the plans in terms of uh, future hazards or this new chapter that's being added to ASC 7? Do you think that there are do you have the plans to build on climate projections related to the hazards?
Yes. In fact, I was just in a meeting with uh, the people working on. There is a chapter in the 728 that will be specifically uh, discussing future conditions for rain, sea level, ice, snow, and wind. And they are providing us with a number of data sets that talk about um, developing conditions reflecting projected climate change for those particular hazards. There might be some data coming in from regarding tornado as well. I'm not. That's a little bit. That's unclear at this point whether we're going to get tornado, but definitely rain, flood, and ice, snow, and wind are getting the treatment, and there will be. We're going to be integrating that into the hazard tool so that when you are looking up uh, ice or rainfall data, for example, you're getting the current values, but you're also getting values from this additional data regarding projected conditions. And in flood in particular is getting an overhaul. In the past, flood does not. Uh, there's not a lot of specific data that has actually historically been provided for flood um, in the standard, and the hazard tool essentially just uh, takes the flood maps available from FEMA and provides you with the uh, the type of flood region that you happen to be in, and I think a couple of other variables depending on what region you are. But the future conditions chapter um, uh, will include multiple data sets allowing for um, projected projects and the projected length of the project and based on where you are and based on projections regarding sea level changes and so on and so forth.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I have another question about AI. I'm glad to know that there is in publications, ASC publications, there is an activity to advance the use of AI, building on not only the standards but the ASC publication, the library. I was part of a committee, more of strategic thinking and planning for ASCE, to examine the future publications of ASCE, especially open access and all the emerging requirements by
Mm-hmm.
federal law and so on. And the question about AI, it looks to me it's not only ASC library that we'll need to have special AI engine to deal with hazards, but ideally, if we could link to it could be NOAA publications, FEMA, NIST. I mean, anything, USGS, anything which has the term hazard or seismic or earthquakes and so on, we
Mm-hmm.
could come up with quite a number of them, NASA and so on, previous events, previous disasters, and so on, because so much of it, even the stations that were the thousands of stations we have for rainfall and temperature and so on. I mean, the powers of AI just tremendous in sorting through this and giving answers. So it does require almost a strategy of how it should be done, really broadly beyond, the content of the ASC libraries is crucial, and it could give that as a core item, but they could be all type of other publications of libraries that needs to be, and the whole thing is interlinked. I mean, you could look
Yeah.
at an ASCE journal that deals that typically we publish in it and related to seismic, but then you could, through the citations and so on, identify other journals where we need really to have access to those and bring them on board. So I wonder to what extent the broader ASC community is engaged in all of this to make sure that such an initiative, which is, in my opinion, is the way of the future and very important, will end up bringing in the right expertise and the maybe the imagination of how it could be done in an effective way. Anyhow, this is maybe beyond your presentation, but you might have some insights.
Well, the version that we are making available on Amplify is definitely uh, an initial sort of test case. We are, we want to use it in a sort of bounded area where we know exactly what kind of information it's meant to contain, and we can test it very rigorously to ensure that ensure accuracy of its responses, its ability to be clear about the provenance of those responses, and that the nature of those responses is what we intend. Is we don't want, obviously we don't want the AI to start explaining how to build bridges to people, but to be able to provide and help people find the information that they need in the standards and in the published material. But our long-term goals definitely include an expansion of that to cover more ASC material, and I fully expect that as we continue to move forward, there will be ways to integrate more of that, and create synergies with other AI networks, and to be able to pull all of that information together. I don't have specific projects that I can cite at the moment, but those are all sort of on the table at the moment.
All right. Thanks, Mike. I know, Jennifer, you were trying to interject in there at one point, and then Dennis, I'll come to you. Okay.
That is the perfect segue to my presentation, Dan. I have a lot of more of those details in about future conditions and what data sets are being pulled. So I'll just reserve that until we get there.
Okay, excellent. And then Dennis, did you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I can.
Fine.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I put it in the chat that consensus-based codes and standards after a disaster, when you go to rebuild, what I have done already, and I just wanted to share this, that Amplify helps you go to a higher standard when you're doing the rebuilding, and that's why it's such a great tool for repair of assets to a community. Anyway, it's a great tool, and I just wanted to share that outside of the chat. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Any other questions or comments for Mike? I mean, I think this is an exciting advance. I mean, I think the discussion here points that out with the move towards AI, et cetera, the work we're doing with the federal agencies on these data sets. I think it's going to be a really, just another example of good synergy here. So I appreciate you coming in and making that presentation.